This is the most anticipated primitive survival challenge ever. 21 days surviving in the wild, following the same formula but with a brand new flavor. The production team, always known for surprises, split 4 contestants into 2 teams and dropped them into a rainforest in Panama. This time they chose an uninhabited island that had never seen a single human footprint. Year-round, the area is battered by strong winds, storms, and extreme weather, not to mention countless dangerous venomous creatures. The 4 contestants would have to survive 21 days here. Each person could bring only 1 survival item, and there were no rules limiting what they could do. Throughout the journey, they would face each other completely naked. Whoever lasted until the end would win a $100,000 prize from the show. The first contestant was Cassie, a blonde, blue-eyed beauty who had studied primitive survival skills from books and believed this challenge would be child's play. The next contestant was a true expert. Catching fish by freediving was nothing to him, and wrestling a 9-foot python barehanded was no problem either. His nickname, the reptile expert, had made the name Forrest famous everywhere. The 2 of them each boarded a cheap rental canoe provided by the show and headed toward the challenge site. Upon reaching the meeting point, under the crew's guidance, they quickly stripped off all their clothes and moved toward the rendezvous. The moment they met, Forrest showed off the playful side of a young man. His dance moves looked a little silly, but they made everyone laugh. After getting acquainted, the 2 began checking the survival gear left for them. Studying the mission map, they discovered that on day 21 they would have to cross shark-infested waters to reach the extraction point. Seeing this, both of them couldn't help but complain. After going over the requirements, they agreed the first priority was building a shelter. Meanwhile, the other team was also approaching the challenge site. The first to arrive was Manu, a former Special Forces trainer, and the other was La, a wilderness survival guide. After a simple greeting, they immediately began checking their gear. Looking at the mission map, they found their extraction point was identical to the other teams. La understood the 4 key pillars of wilderness survival well, so shelter was the top priority. They chose a spot near a river, and before nightfall, they'd already built a simple bed. Forrest and Cassie, on the other hand, spent far too much time searching for food and disagreed over how to build the shelter, so they hadn't finished by dark. Reluctantly, they kept working late into the night. Suddenly, thunder cracked and heavy rain poured down. Compared to La's team, La's shelter looked far sturdier. While Forrest and Cassie's shelter let wind and rain pour in from every direction, no different from sitting outside in a rainstorm. By midnight, their already weak shelter had collapsed. The next morning, to prepare for more sudden rain, Forrest and Cassie decided to rebuild a stronger shelter. Forrest wanted to improve the structure, but Cassie insisted the collapse happened because Forrest had leaned on it too hard while sleeping. With no other choice, Forrest swallowed his frustration and kept working with Cassie to rebuild the shelter. On La's side, tasks were divided clearly to avoid wasting energy. La went out alone to find food while Manu stayed behind to reinforce the shelter. Before long, La returned with a fairly large coconut, though it smelled slightly off. Both La and Manu ate it completely. Afterward, Manu began gathering vines to weave a fish trap, having spotted small fish swimming in a nearby stream. If they could catch even a little every day, the 21 days would be much easier. Meanwhile, though Forrest wanted to teach Cassie some survival skills, she wasn't happy about it, feeling he was treating her like a 3-year-old. Unable to stand Cassie's attitude any longer, Forrest decided to split off and go handle his own hunger first. He didn't expect the seemingly deserted beach to have quite a few clams. After eating his fill, he headed back to camp, while Cassie stubbornly stayed at the shelter, determined to fast through all 21 days. Without protein for an extended period, even Manu, a former Special Forces soldier, began feeling unwell. La considerately told her to rest while he used a branch to make a spear to try catching fish, though using it to catch small fish felt nearly impossible. After many failed attempts, La was about to head back when he suddenly spotted a crab napping on the riverbank. Manu was so thrilled at the sight that she blurted out a curse in delight. Thankfully, they'd chosen to bring fire-starting flint from the start, so a task that's normally tricky, starting a fire, became simple for them. Though the crab wasn't large, once roasted, it was their only source of protein so far. After eating it, Manu regained a bit of strength. Just as it seemed peace had returned, on day 9, a sudden thunderstorm brought heavy rain, and the stream's water level rose rapidly, nearly flooding the entire camp. The next morning, they discussed it and decided to explore higher ground. Both of them fashioned crude sandals from leaves and began heading upstream. After half a day's walk, they were surprised to discover a freshwater lake right ahead. Nearby, they also spotted a troop of monkeys watching them. Although the waterfall area had no shortage of fresh water, the monkeys growling at night left both of them badly frightened. Back with Forrest. Although another heavy storm destroyed his shelter again, luck struck while he was out gathering wood. He found a disoriented wild animal. Ever generous, Forrest set aside his grudge and decided to share this protein-rich find with Cassie. But Cassie, who always bragged about her survival skills, fumbled for an entire afternoon and still couldn't start a fire. Helplessly, the two had to let the animal go to waste. After losing their shelter to rain twice, they decided to find a new spot to camp. Passing by a waterfall, Forrest suddenly spotted La and Manu at its base. Both groups were stunned to realize they weren't the only team in this challenge. When they compared extraction points, they found them to be identical, leaving everyone both shocked and delighted. La then heard from Forrest that the relationship between his own teammates wasn't great. Forrest thought Cassie was extremely lazy, while Cassie thought Forrest was arrogant and always bragging about himself. After understanding the situation, the group decided to reassign tasks. Manu and Cassie would stay to reinforce a new shelter, while La and Forrest would go find food and scout the best extraction route. But right after La and Forrest left, Manu and Cassie got into an argument. Manu found herself busy working while Cassie snuck off for a nap. Though annoyed, Manu only complained mildly, while Cassie calmly said there was still plenty of time she'd rest first and work later. With no other option, Cassie eventually went out to gather a few branches to weave a fish trap. Infuriatingly, she didn't even check whether anyone was around before tossing branches carelessly, nearly hitting Manu and making her furious enough to curse Cassie's entire family line. Meanwhile, after crossing an open clearing, La and Forrest finally reached a mountaintop. From there, they realized that to reach the extraction point across the river, they'd need to build a raft, otherwise they'd have to hike an extra 12 miles through the mountains. By day 12, the whole group went out together to gather materials for the raft, leaving only Cassie behind on the sand, still weaving her fish trap. That night, heavy rain returned to their camp. To keep their only fire from going out, everyone agreed to take turns keeping watch. But when it was Cassie's turn, she slept right through it, completely unbothered. Luckily, Forrest woke up in the middle of the night just in time to catch the fire nearly dying out. The next day, while everyone else went out searching for materials, they discovered Cassie had been dodging fire duty on purpose, still sitting alone weaving her trap. By the time they returned, they found her lying on a rock, sunbathing and relaxing. Manu couldn't take it anymore and decided to weave the trap herself, and while Cassie had struggled for days without finishing hers, Manu completed one in just 3 hours, superior in both appearance and function. Cassie could only stand there, too embarrassed to look anyone in the eye. That night, La couldn't help scolding Cassie loudly, but Cassie made excuses, claiming she'd traveled the world and had plenty of survival skills she simply hadn't wanted to show off. By day 15, Fred, usually a late sleeper, woke up early instead. Seeing his teammates still asleep, he went to the beach alone to dive for food, but came up empty-handed due to poor weather. For the next several days, the group could only huddle in their shelter, exhausted, waiting out the rain. By day 17, the rain finally began to ease. Manu went out to forage and spotted several logs washed ashore. The whole group rushed to haul them back to camp, everyone completely worn out, while Cassie, once again, lay there sleeping, leaving the other three furious enough to curse her entire lineage. On day 18, while out searching for food, the three of them found several hermit crabs crawling along the beach. Not a huge amount, but enough to provide some much-needed protein, crispy and golden like fried chicken when cooked. Cassie, drawn by the smell, wandered over to eat her fill before lying back down again, leaving everyone seething. While building the raft, La openly suggested leaving Cassie behind and having just the three of them continue the challenge, since she was contributing nothing but draining the group like a leech. Manu, with her military background, refused no matter how bad a teammate was. You don't abandon someone on the battlefield. Seeing Manu's resolve, La dropped the idea. By day 20, the skies finally cleared. Forrest went back down to the sea to fish again. This time he caught 2 lobsters hiding in the rocks and 1 large fish. Seeing the seafood haul, the whole group was thrilled, showering Forrest with every compliment they could remember from 9 years of schooling, praising his incredible protein delivery just in time to lay solid groundwork for the extraction the next day. After eating well and realizing the final day was near, Cassie, whether out of genuine remorse or fear of being left behind, suddenly broke down crying and apologizing to everyone. On day 21, the group carried the raft toward the extraction point on the opposite island. To get there, they had to cross more than 4 miles of shark-infested water. Shortly after leaving shore, they realized the raft couldn't support all 4 of their combined weight, forcing Law and Forrest to jump into the water and push it from behind. They didn't encounter any sharks, but ran into swarms of jellyfish instead, and everyone got stung, with Law yelping in pain. After 3 grueling hours, they finally reached the shore safely. After bidding farewell to their raft, the group hiked another 4 hours up to the mountaintop where the extraction helicopter awaited. When they spotted it approaching in the distance, the whole group erupted with joy, dancing with excitement. Once everyone had boarded, the 21-day challenge officially came to a triumphant end. Most heartening of all, Cassie truly came to recognize her own shortcomings and stubbornness, and express deep gratitude that the others hadn't abandoned her at the very end. Unexpectedly, after the show, Manu had to be hospitalized after contracting cholera during the survival ordeal. Thankfully, she recovered soon after. Sadly, the $100,000 prize everyone had hoped for went unclaimed, as the challenge ended at this stage. This season is considered to have featured some of the strongest contestants wild survival has ever seen. 21 days, where most people would go hungry for 9 meals over 3 days. Yet these contestants roasted rats for a fragrant meal and caught 8-foot-long snakes as easily as child's play. Eating raw snake was practically just an appetizer. And closing out this season is Billy, a quiet, low-profile man who loves the primitive lifestyle, skilled at horseback riding, archery, and above all, hunting, which comes to him as naturally as a fish takes to water. He joined the challenge purely to prove he was every bit the equal of wealthy, privileged rivals. He didn't expect the show to pair him with a beautiful female partner from Australia, someone also fairly well known while not particularly skilled in refined arts. She possessed a unique talent that left everyone in awe. Despite being a woman, she could take down an opponent with just 2 moves. She joined the challenge to prove herself. This time, to raise the stakes, the production team ramped up the difficulty. The 2 contestants would be dropped into a swampy forest in the state of Louisiana in the southern United States, a place more dangerous than imaginable. Millions of alligators lurk in the swamp waters, stalking prey, while rattlesnakes on land are ready to send you to your grave at any moment. The humid, reptile-infested environment has made this area effectively off-limits to humans, with local authorities banning entry entirely. Yet the 2 contestants had no choice but to grit their teeth and step in to complete this 21-day primitive survival challenge, during which they would remain completely naked throughout. The production crew then delivered each contestant to their designated starting point. The first to appear was Billy, dubbed the Forest Spirit. As soon as he arrived, he immediately stripped off his clothes. Kai, after shedding her own clothing, felt a sense of relief she'd never experienced before. Under the crew's guidance, the 2 met in the water. Though total strangers before this, they hit it off immediately. For survival gear, each chose 1 item, a bush knife, and a fire-starting flint. Looking at the survival map, the production team left behind upon seeing their final extraction point, and both Billy and Kai immediately cursed whoever had picked an extraction point smack in the middle of an alligator-infested swamp was clearly some kind of sadist. Before they could even get to know each other properly, an alligator nearby was already staring them down. It was mating season, making the alligators especially aggressive. Their best option was to get out of the water quickly. In this shallow, murky pool where deep and shallow areas blurred together, every step felt like opening a mystery box. No sooner had they left the alligator's territory than Billy spotted a snake slithering quickly by, stalking prey of its own. After walking some distance, the 2 finally found a patch of land suitable for a shelter. After searching around, they gathered a few discarded logs to start building, lining it with leaves to quickly finish a simple temporary shelter. Next on the list was solving the water problem. While Billy was still puzzling over how to manage it, Kai, out foraging for food, stumbled upon a discarded iron pot in the swamp, solving their drinking water problem far more easily than expected. Next came the search for fire. Just as Billy was about to start one, a snake darted swiftly past. Bold and sharp-eyed, Billy didn't hesitate. He immediately gave chase, focusing on speed, precision, and decisiveness. Neither of them expected that on the very first day of the challenge, prey would practically deliver itself to their doorstep. Both of them instantly felt a surge of confidence about the challenge ahead. But once night fell and temperatures dropped sharply, bringing bone-deep cold, the two of them became nothing more than a free buffet for the local mosquito population. The next morning, Billy continued reinforcing the shelter, adding more dry grass not only to block wind and rain, but also to help keep mosquitoes at bay. Meanwhile, Kai went back out to search for food. On her way back, she noticed a plump snake right beneath her feet. Though she didn't dare act on it herself, after hearing about it, Billy quickly sharpened the end of a branch into a point. Once it was sharp enough, he waited for the right moment and struck a fatal blow. Just as he was celebrating having something to improve their meal, he noticed another large snake nearby, and turning around, realized several more were heading straight toward him. Faced with the situation, Billy had no choice but to retreat and rethink his strategy, since a single bite from one of these snakes could be fatal within 24 hours. Day 4 arrived quickly, with dark clouds rolling in thick and heavy. Billy hauled back a pile of palm leaves to reinforce the shelter, since rain here comes down without warning. With Billy handling nearly everything skillfully, Kai could only stand by and help with small tasks, since she didn't know how to do much herself. This started to worry her from building the shelter to catching snakes. Billy had done it all single-handedly, and she wanted to find some way to repay him that evening. But before she could prepare anything, the rain came pouring down like it was being dumped from buckets. Not only did the temperature drop sharply, but the shelter began leaking everywhere. What infuriated Billy most was that the storm hadn't even ended before their shelter was already completely flooded. The next morning, they found the shelter entirely submerged. Billy gritted his teeth in frustration but could only swallow his anger. Even the fire they'd worked so hard to build had been extinguished along with the shelter. Looking around, everything had been swallowed by the water. Billy managed to find the one remaining patch of dry ground and used stones to build a makeshift platform as a base of operations. In a situation like this, survival came first, above all else. Fortunately, thanks to their fire-starting flint, they were still able to get a fire going, easily proof that real skill speaks for itself. No words needed. Still, having no shelter was a serious problem, and finding food remained a constant headache for both of them. Though the rain had stopped, it brought swarms of forest leeches everywhere. By day 7, Billy noticed his feet starting to show signs of trouble from being soaked in water too long. Since the big storm, neither of them had eaten a thing, so getting protein became the most urgent priority. As the weather began to stabilize, Billy went out foraging and discovered a nearby swamp teeming with small lobsters. Even some local birds were feasting freely on them. Seeing protein right in front of them but unable to catch it left both of them anxious. Kai came up with the idea of building a trap to catch the lobsters, but they needed bait to lure them in. She suddenly remembered there was no shortage of leeches around, so the two of them dipped their legs into the water to attract them. After catching a few and processing them roughly, Kai set the trap in the swamp near camp, hoping this time they'd finally eat their fill. The next morning at first light, Kai eagerly went to check the trap, only to find they'd caught just a single lobster overnight. Looking closer, she realized the trap's gaps were too wide, letting the lobsters escape easily. After adjusting the trap, the two continued relying on it to catch lobsters and get by day to day. Time passed until day 13. When Billy, always attentive to detail, made a bold decision. After days of observation, he noticed the water consistently flowed in one direction, leading him to guess there might be higher, drier ground somewhere behind them. Kai thought it was a reckless gamble. If he guessed wrong, they wouldn't have the strength to make it back to camp, and their journey would essentially be over. But in the end, she had no choice but to follow Billy's lead despite having no idea what she was doing. After dodging thick, thorny brush and a few lurking creatures along the way, Kai noticed the water rising to her waist, making her start to doubt Billy's decision, and even Billy himself began to lose confidence. Just then, Kai suddenly shouted, having spotted real dry land ahead. "Billy, I think there's dry land up ahead! It still looks like swamp to me. I'm not sure." Sure enough, Not far ahead, a genuine patch of solid ground appeared a rare sight after all this time. After nearly 7 exhausting hours from morning to evening, the two finally reached a wider stretch of dry land. Once they got a fire going again, they had no energy left and no will to do anything else. They decided to simply lie down and sleep right there on the ground. The next morning, learning from their earlier mistake, they decided to build an additional shelter as a backup in case another sudden storm hit. But after going so long without eating, both of them were faint with hunger. Without more protein soon, surviving to the end of the challenge would be extremely difficult. After discussing it, they decided to craft a weapon to go hunting, fashioning a spear from a branch, and set out together. They hadn't gone far before Kai's sharp eyes spotted animal tracks on the ground. Though they couldn't tell what kind of animal it was, they could already sense protein was nearby. Following the tracks, they arrived at a dead tree trunk. Billy crouched down and discovered a small animal hiding inside. Kai, who was normally too soft-hearted to kill anything, felt tears well up, but this wasn't the time for hesitation. The best ingredients are always brought out best over an open flame. After eating their fill, the two finally had time to do something for themselves. Making the most of every material available, they dried the animal's remaining fur and used cord to stitch it together. It was impossible not to admire their creativity. Fairly speaking, it was probably the most stylish matching outfit in the history of survival duos, even if the limited material meant Billy could only cover his lower half, while Kai covered her upper half. For the rest of their time, the two focused on studying their extraction route. Time moved quickly, and day 20 arrived. They pulled out the map to confirm the exact extraction point, and having already gained experience relocating camp before, this next stretch felt far less daunting. When they reached the designated extraction site, Billy, standing by the riverbank, spotted several alligators lurking in the shadows. With no other option, once the helicopter began approaching, the two of them had to risk it and swim hard toward it. Fortunately, just before becoming the alligators' dinner, both of them made it safely aboard. The 21-day wild survival challenge finally came to a successful end. Over those 21 days, Billy had lost 46 pounds, while Kai lost about 20. And that's where this episode wraps up. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.